Having gotten to know you as I have the feeling that you feel a sense of commitment to your supporters and to your donors, and the things that they've supported and continued to. I can't imagine you telling them that that journey or fight is over. You're going to continue to push those issues, and part of the way to do that might be through the administration, or it could be in other ways, but there's no way you're going to let up on the things that you've been espousing. I heard you in your press conference thanking them for their support and letting them know that's not over. You're continuing those same agendas, those same priorities. That's still important to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to use my own resources, my energies and talents, as long as I can. This is, to me, the most important issue in our country today, because we have the highest chronic disease burden of any country in the world, and it's destroying us. It's $4.3 trillion a year. It's costing our country 5 times the military budget. When my uncle was president, the medical expenditures on chronic disease were zero. Today, it's 95% of our healthcare expenditures. It's sinking our country. And we're getting sicker and sicker. We're paying twice what Europeans do for healthcare. We have the worst healthcare outcomes in the world. It's all because we're being mass poisoned by processed foods, by pesticides, by chemicals, by pharmaceutical drugs. And there's a series of industries that actually make money by keeping us sick. It's not just industries, but it's the med schools, the hospitals, the insurance companies you would think would want us healthy, but they actually make more money if we get sicker. And then, of course, the pharmaceutical companies. If you have a chronic disease, you're a lifetime patient. This drug, Ozempic, costs $1,500 for a week. And there's now a bill before Congress that would force the insurance companies, Medicare, to pay for it for every American who's obese. Well, that's 74% of our population.
Right.
That's going to be $3 trillion a year. And for a tiny fraction of that, you could give every American 3 meals a day of organic food, and diabetes would disappear overnight. Diabetes is treatable with food,
right,
with exercise, and obesity is.
And what you talk about is empirically verified. This isn't just some theory that you hatch in your back room sometime. These things are factually based. They're empirical. And I think that's so important. It was important to me that whenever you were talking about this, you were also talking about being blackballed by the media, because we had so many people that were not wanting to put you on the air, ABC, NBC, CBS, all the major networks, and this has continued. Now, at Merit Street, we put you on, of course, and going to continue to put you on, as long as we can lure you in there, because we're talking about science. This isn't opinion. This is empirical science, evidence-based. Why do you think they're so threatened? Are we following the money here? Is that what it gets down to?
I think in terms of the television networks are very, very dependent on pharmaceutical advertising. I knew Roger Ailes very well. Roger Ailes was, of course, the founder of Fox News and the CEO of Fox News for many years. He and I were on opposite sides of the political spectrum, but we had this friendship that survived all that. He would always made sure that I could get on his platform to talk about environmental issues. So I was the only environmentalist who was going on Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly and Neil Cavuto for many, many years. And at one point I made a film about the impacts of the relationship between mercury and this epidemic of neurological injuries and mercury in medical products. And I showed him the film, and he said, I have a family member who I think was injured by this. And he said, this is a really important film. He said, I can't allow you onto my network for this, because for the evening news division, about 70% of our revenues are coming from pharmaceutical companies. And he said to me at that time that typically there are 23 ads on a evening news segment, a show, and that 17 of those on average are pharmaceutical. He said, if any of my hosts allowed you on TV, I'd have to fire them. And if I didn't, I would hear from Rupert, meaning Rupert Murdoch, within 10 minutes. He was very clear to me about that. I've seen that evidence across the board with all of the networks. They're very, very sensitive to their advertisers. And those companies are advertising not just as a platform for selling product, but also because they can dictate content. They can make sure that, you know, who's ever on that news show is towing the line.
Well, we had Kelly Means on my show, Dr. Phil Primetime, talking about the very things that you're focusing on here, and my audience was fascinated because there were things they had not heard before. There were facts, information they had not heard, and that show, we put it on we have an app, Merit Plus, where you can watch those shows after the fact, and that show just continued its audience grew and grew and it continues to this day to grow based on the information that was given. People were fascinated by what he had to say.
He's riveting.
You're exactly right, and people don't know because the information is not being put out there. Did you ever think you would see this kind of censorship in our lifetime?
No. It's shocking to me. Even today, I mean, I'm not shocked by it anymore.
Yeah, no, we're not anymore.
No, but I'm even, you know, when I did my press conference right now, as soon as I said something sensitive, CNN shut off the feed, and Facebook did too. So, you know, I won a case. In fact, this week I got a judgment from a federal court against the Biden White House for censoring my speech on the social media platforms, for ordering the social media platforms to censor my speech. 37 hours after he took the oath of office, President Biden's White House was opening these portals. And this is all in the judge's decision. It's a 155-page decision. The portals were run by the FBI, but all these other agencies like the CIA, CISA, which is the center of the censorship industrial complex, the IRS, DHS, were invited into this portal, which gave them access to all the social media sites, and they were allowed to censor those and people that they didn't like. And, you know, it's they called it misinformation, but actually Facebook at one time, we know this because we have the emails, said actually what he's saying is scientifically accurate. And so they came up with a new word called malinformation, which is information that is factually accurate, but it is nevertheless inconvenient for the government. And that was one of the categories that
so that's malinformation.
You know, George Martin said the government does not tear a man's tongue out to stop him from telling lies. They tear his tongue out to stop him from telling the truth. At the White House urging, Instagram deplatformed me, and I lost 1 million followers. But Instagram was not able to point to a single post of mine that was factually inaccurate. We had, by that time, the most robust fact-checking operation probably in the country. We had a volunteer group of 350 MD physicians and PhD scientists, including Luc Montagnier, who won the Nobel Prize for discovering the AIDS virus. We had this group that was a scientific advisory group that was looking at everything that we posted, and everything we posted was cited and sourced to either a peer-reviewed publication or a government database. We were very careful about to make sure everything was documented truth. And nobody else really does that these days, but we were doing it. But nevertheless, they deplatformed me and said it's from misinformation, but they couldn't point to a single post I'd made that was actually factually inaccurate. It was disturbing for our democracy because, you know, Hamilton, Madison, and Adams said that we put freedom of expression in the First Amendment because all the other rights are dependent on it. If you have a government that can silence its critic, that government has license for every atrocity. And, you know, there's never been a time in history where we look back and say, the guys who were censoring speech were the good guys. They're always the bad guys because it's always the first step down that slippery slope to totalitarianism. They start with censoring speech. And once they can do that, they can really do anything. And in a democracy, democracies are constructed on this infrastructure of the free flow of information, that we can all get access to information. And the theory is that through the fierce annealment in the furnace of debate, that the best ideas rise, and that's, democracy can then take advantage or make policy of ideas that have triumphed in a marketplace. This is our advantage over totalitarian systems, because totalitarian systems are much more efficient. If you can just tell everybody what to do and make decisions instantly, and there's no pushback, and their democracies are sloppy, but they can outcompete totalitarian systems, because that mechanism of free flow of information and debate gives us an advantage in the marketplace and in government. Information flows are the sunlight, they're the soil, they're the fertilizer, and the water for democracy. And when you cut it off, democracy withers and dies.